And I'll come on stage. Hey, everybody. Looks like we got 11 folks in here right now, so we'll allow people to pile in. We'll start 3 or 4 minutes after. While people are joining, um, yeah, well, I guess we could do introductions really quick, Kevin. So I'm Austin Becker. I'm going to be supporting Kevin today. We also have Alexander backstage who's going to be helping answer questions in the chat. And Shika, shout out to both of them. We we are part of the corporate solutions engineering or sales engineering team here at GitHub. So excited to walk you through this. Kevin's going to be talking about what's new specifically from Universe. But while we're waiting for people to come in, where are you guys calling in from? Drop in the chat. Hey, what's up, Kate? That's a fellow hubber. I think. Yeah. Hopefully. Unless it's the same Kate, different Kate, same name. So we got a couple of people are Seattle, Oregon, New York, SF. Nice. I'm I'm in the middle of nowhere, Utah. So or Cedar City, if anybody's been here before, close to St. George or Zion. And then while we're giving people just a couple more minutes to join in, we're gonna have a smaller group today. I think with the holidays, we had less people probably in the office, which is okay. But we will also share a recording at the end of this. We'll make that available for those. Wow, look at that view. That's awesome. Um, yeah, and then also while we're waiting, just if you guys don't mind dropping in the chat how proficient or how frequently you guys use GitHub Copilot or just AI in general. So it's going to be a sliding scale 1 to 5. 1 means you hardly ever, if never at all, use AI tools for pair programming. 5 means you use them every single day. And if you're a 4 or 5, tell us what tool you're using. I don't care if you're using a competitor's tool like Cursor or Claude. Just curious what the overall AI exposure is for pair programming. We got a 5. Kevin. Bradley, nice. Copilot. Kevin used Copilot. Tab 9 a bit. Okay, cool. I hear Tab 9 has like a cool, or the reasons why I hear people use Tab 9 is I think they offer it on-prem. So that's kind of a cool tool. Visual Studio, Cloud Copilot, nice. Cloud Code, yeah, that's what I expected. That's what it seems to be. It's less Cursor these days. It's more Copilot and Cloud Code. Cloud Code. So I don't know how you guys can afford it. It's like $200 a month. It's crazy. I guess their businesses are probably paying for them, but 1s or 2s, cool. So it looks like we have a good like breakdown between that. Appreciate you guys doing that. So it's kind of slowed down with people joining. So Kevin, we could probably get going.
Yeah. No, thank you, Austin. And thank you all for showing up. I know it's a busy time of the year, trying to wrap things up before the holidays. So we really appreciate your time. So I'm going to start out with some slides just to kind of go over everything that we released with GitHub Universe. And then from there, I'm going to dig into what is new on the IDE front, as well as what's new with GitHub.com. So if I were to summarize this presentation in 2 words, it's agent orchestration. Earlier this year, we launched the Copilot agent across the GitHub.com surfaces, as well as in the IDE. And we've seen a lot of customers get huge ROI returns from having that agent experience embedded into their SDLC. But with that came another problem, which is around how do we actually manage these agents, right? As you continue to adopt them, how do you know which ones are doing? How do you dig into them? How can you course correct or steer them in the direction that you want them to go? How can you, as an administrator, know what policies you are enforcing around AI controls and agents? These are the kind of things that we were thinking about. And a lot of the features that we're going to show you today is really around exactly that. So starting out, something that you may or may not have heard from GitHub Universe, which just zooming back a bit, GitHub Universe is our annual developer conference. We usually hold back a number of features to launch to time around GitHub Universe. So this is kind of a special presentation in the sense that we're going to show a lot of new things that have been out for only about 3 or 4 weeks in public preview or generally available. The first one is Agent HQ. So just to be clear, Agent HQ is not a product, is not a single feature. it's really about this philosophy that we have moving forward. GitHub is going to be the open ecosystem for agents. What that means is that things like being able to dig into a specific agent task, see what it's doing, be able to modify things as necessary, having additional controls around how you have these different models available across your SDLC as an administrator, having different surfaces where you can have GitHub Copilot, such as in the CLI, and moving forward, also being able to have third-party agents, such as those from OpenAI. These are really things looking forward that we want to have as a part of the GitHub ecosystem. So not a single feature or product, but really just this philosophy, this umbrella term to capture what we're looking forward to for the things to come. But as we zoom in, some of the specific things that we have that we're going to talk about today include things like Copilot mission control. This is on github.com. This is where you're going to be able to assign, manage, and track the specific Copilot coding agent task that you have created throughout GitHub. So this is where you're going to have this centralized place where you want to change that one specific thing. That one thing for this one particular agent, be able to see it, see what files it's modifying, see how it's doing, whether there's any errors, modification that you need to make. So we're going to go into that a little bit later in the presentation. We also have the Copilot CLI. We're not going to actually go too in-depth into this during this presentation, but the gist of it is that now you can delegate tasks directly to the coding agent directly from the CLI and do a lot of these custom tasks. And this is really cool, especially if you're looking to automate some of the different aspects and have the agent or just Copilot in general embedded into some automations that you want to script out. This is really exciting for that. And building on top of that is custom agents. So what you can do now is you can have a custom agent that you build using natural language so that you can fine tune. Okay, that's probably the wrong word, but you can make it so that you have a specific task that you wanted to accomplish more consistently. We also have metrics specifically around Copilot usage, a dashboard plus API. This is in public preview today, available at the enterprise level. Really good for being able to dig into adoption trends, usage trends, which teams that are using Copilot across your different teams. We're also releasing a coding agent Slack integration. We're not going to get too in depth into this, but essentially now there's less friction between being able to delegate tasks to the coding agent directly from collaboration tools such as Slack. And last but not least, on the GitHub Copilot side, this is really exciting. Today, for Copilot Pro Plus individual subscriptions, you can now use the OpenAI Codex agent directly in VS Code Insiders. So moving forward, we are hoping to have this available for Copilot Business and Copilot Enterprise users. But the gist of it is really we're wanting GitHub Copilot to extend beyond just having the GitHub agent itself. So it's really exciting, and this will make it so that you can have more granularity and more options and flexibility into how you actually interface with agents across your SDLC. Last couple of slides. So this is titled a GitHub Copilot discussion, but there are a couple of things that we're releasing around advanced security as well that I'll go through real quick. The first is now we're building on top of for GitHub Advanced Security code scanning piece. You can already assign or create issues for Copilot Autofix. Now you can assign these tasks directly to the agent, reducing the amount of friction and increasing the velocity of the remediation process for these vulnerabilities. So we'll go into that as well later in the presentation. And last but not least, GitHub Code Quality. This is available in public preview. And we wanted this dedicated product where as you continue to deliver more features, as you continue to adopt the agent, we want to make sure that there's a checkpoint or a gate in place so that you can see the maintainability and reliability of your code base over time, making sure that you're able to identify these and fix them as a part of your review process. So thank you so much. I'm going to now go into the VS Code Insiders. We'll start here at the IDE. and then shipped over to github.com afterwards. So just to orient ourselves around the first thing I want to show, this is VS Code Insiders. This is essentially a public preview for the IDE for VS Code. So features that come out, typically they get released onto Insiders first. What we have here is a front-end React application. It essentially has a product page, but there's no cart, there's not really any functionality in place. I also have the agent or the chat mode on the right, and then I also have something on the left that I'll show later. But one of the new things that we have released is called the plan mode. So if we go over to the right, where you go to the chat window, you're probably used to seeing Ask, Edit, and Agent. They've been there for a while. We're now releasing Plan. This is really there to make it so that you can have a specific direction on where you want to go to for a particular thing that you're looking to solve. And you can validate that it looks good before you actually start implementing it. So in this case, what I can do here is add in a prompt, something like, I need to implement a cart feature in this application. Help me plan that. What this is going to do is kick off this chat. It's going to start working, reading through the different files that we have in this application, and then come up with the plan. Now, while that's going, I also want to show something new that I think will be really exciting, especially as you're looking at interfacing directly between the IDE and github.com. And that is on the left here. You might notice that there's this new button here, essentially an agent session chat. What this is essentially it allows you to delegate tasks to the cloud agent directly from the IDE. And what that looks like is if we create a new session here with this plus button, we'll get this dedicated window where you can delegate a task, you can add context, and select a specific agent. We'll kind of go into what these are. These are custom agents later on. But just for the sake of reproduction, I do have a prompt that I'm going to use. So in this file structure, I have this markdown prompt for a CCA parallel. This is essentially akin to if one of your developers were to describe what they want to accomplish to an agent, we just have it kind of out in a markdown file for demo reproduction purposes. But you can see here, I'm giving context into what this application is, the current state, the goal of this, and the specific instructions on how I want to implement a cart functionality, the ability to remove and add items, free shipping, things of that nature. If I go to this agent session, add in that file as context, and then ask it to implement the features as described in this prompt. What that is going to do is start delegating that task directly to the cloud agent and create a pull request. So less friction. It makes it so that you can get your features that you are delegating to the agent directly to your team in a more efficient manner. And as you can see here, it's already created a pull request. We can click into the see more button to see the specific pull request. And really, you can see that this is kind of mirroring what you would see on github.com. But we'll get back to that. Going back to the right side here, you can see that with the plan mode, this has described essentially what it's trying to do. It's read through these different files and is giving us specific steps on this plan on how we can implement this. This is really cool because from my experience, some developers, there's a spectrum of how much they want to actually have the agent implement. You can make it so that with agent mode, it can just start going and implementing these features, but maybe you want to validate the steps and what it's trying to take. What is it actually going to accomplish? And maybe there's things that you want to course correct before it starts executing. This is exactly what plan mode is for. It's giving you these specific things that it's going to try to implement. And it also gives you some open questions, things that you maybe did not consider, maybe things that you want to validate before you start implementing it. And the great thing from here is that you can either open this directly in the editor and start working on it manually, or you can click on Start Implementation so that you can get the agent to start working. We'll pause that there just for the sake of time, but that's definitely something that we recommend that you take a look at, as you continue to work with GitHub Copilot in your IDE. Now we're going to switch over to github.com. And from here, with this pull request, what we can do is click on this number 39. That's going to open this new tab to this specific pull request that has been created a minute ago from that Cloud agent. So you can see here, nothing too out of the ordinary, but one thing that is really, that's new that we want to focus on here is the view session button. So you can see here, Copilot has started to work on behalf of myself. If you click on view session, this is going to show you mission control. So what is mission control? Mission control is the dashboard where an individual who is orchestrating these different agents across different repositories can see the progress that they're making towards accomplishing a specific goal. And what's really cool here, there's about 3 things that I can highlight. The first is that these different agent sessions, you can see from a quick glimpse the current progress. Is it in progress? Has it succeeded? Was there an error? So you can very quickly go in and diagnose or course correct or do whatever you need to do in order to get the agent to work. If it has done something, as expected, amazing, you can see it. You can also see that there's transparency into what specific steps it had done. You can see that it's installing different dependencies, getting these MCP servers installed, viewing these different things and working. And you can see that even while it's going and completing this task, you can actually steer the session directly from this window. You can also see that it's working on the right here. And if we go into one that I've already done earlier, you can actually see that we're going to be able to get a summary, a rich diff of the specific things that it has accomplished. In natural language, it's describing what it's done, give some screenshots. You can go to the particular file that you want to change. Really, this is designed to give you the options to do whatever you need to do to get whatever goals you need accomplished with the agent. Now, what's really cool about this is that you can also use the agent, Copilot coding agent directly from .com. And what I'll show is a different example where maybe you don't want to go from the ID, maybe you want to do it directly from the github.com. So if we go to this repository, go open to this open agent panel, you can see those recent sessions are still there. But maybe for this particular repository, I want to do something like add an ES lint rule to enforce semicolons. From here, you can even select one of these custom agents, but let's just go with the default by now and start this task. Give that a second to run. And I clicked into it. It's going to take a second. Oh, this happens. This only happens during demos, by the way. So, okay, so it kicked off. You can see it's spinning up a dev environment. And it's given essentially just context on what the prompt is. Not a lot of information here, but what's really cool is that as it's setting this up, you can say something like, oh, I forgot. Maybe I want to add one more ESLint rule. What Copilot's going to do with this session is it's going to take into that context and queue that for Copilot. So as it's working on implementing your initial prompt, you can add additional prompts midway or even after it's done. So really, really cool for being able to steer how you want this Copilot session to work. And we're not going to sit here and watch the whole thing. So I do have, kind of like a cooking show. I have something that's already in the oven that's baked. We can go back to a previous one. And I've done this already earlier. And if we go here, did the same thing, right? I added this ESLint rule to enforce semicolons and then asked it to add another ESLint rule. And it's describing step by step what it has accomplished, how it's validated this. And at the bottom, you can see a summary, and it has successfully added not just the semicolon enforcement, but also warnings about console statements. So it's very easy as you're looking for low, medium complexity tasks to be accomplished by the agent to really just use natural language to describe what it is that you wanted to do directly in the pull request, directly in github.com for this repository. You can see which files it's changing. And more importantly, let's say that there is something that you want to modify. You can go into the top right here and pull it directly into your local machine, into the CLI. You'd also go back to view the pull request. So tons of different ways and flexibility into what you actually wanted to accomplish. So one thing I also want to highlight is the Copilot code review. So as you may have known, as a part of GitHub Copilot, not only can you delegate tasks to the coding agent, not only can you use the agent directly in your IDE, you can also request Copilot as a reviewer for these open pull requests. And as a part of that, we now identify security vulnerabilities, and we also identify code quality rules that we would recommend you fix. Now, an asterisk here, this is not meant to be a complete replacement for GitHub Advanced Security. These are still non-deterministic fixes and suggestions, and there's not going to be a singular dashboard unless you have GitHub Advanced Security. But it's still really nice to be able to get these fixes proposed to you as a part of the pull request. In this case, I've had Copilot leave a comment, and you can see that it's giving you a visual or a written summary. And what's really nice is it's giving you the specific things that it has proposed to change. In this case, this is a path traversal vulnerability that is identified in this repository. And it's giving you this clear instructions on what has modified or removed. And you can choose to commit the suggestion directly or resolve it if necessary. Same thing here with another vulnerability. But what's really cool is it can also look for code quality rules. So something like this, where it has caught that a semicolon creates an empty statement and could potentially cause syntactical errors, it can catch that too as a part of its code review. Another one here is being able to identify that someone accidentally left score 1 plus score 1 divided by 2 instead of adding score 1 plus score 2. So both of these are different examples of code quality and security vulnerabilities that it has identified. So why does this matter? The reason that this matters is when we kind of looked at rolling this out to customers, we've collected data. And in some cases, we've seen that the number of days that it takes for a pull request to be closed or resolved has been cut by as much as 50%, with and without Copilot code review enabled. So that means that you have more rapid velocity in your release cycles. You can reinvest that saved time into implementing more features, working on more story points. Really, really, I would say code reviews are an essential part of the SDLC, but it tends to become this bottleneck for release cycles. And that's something that we're looking to tackle directly with the code review. So I also want to highlight, sorry, I accidentally clicked on something on the top. Let me see if I can switch tabs here. Sorry, the chat's on the, oh, there we go. So one thing I do want to call out is that if we go to your org settings at the rule set level, you can now, as a part of your branch rule set, now you can automatically request Copilot code review to be a part of your pull request experience. So rather than assigning your requests to be reviewed by Copilot manually, you can now have it be a part of the default experience. So this is a call to action. If you are an org admin or if you know someone who's an org admin, this is something that you can try out today and increase the adoption rapidly. And it'll make it so that you have additional opportunities to get that code review directly in front of your developers. So really cool call out. One thing, last thing I want to highlight before we get into the metrics dashboard is things on the security side. So I'm going to switch tabs here. And as you can see here, I'm at the repository level under the security dashboard for this specific repository. This is where you can see with GitHub Advanced Security, there's these different findings from Dependabot, from a third-party vulnerability perspective, code scanning, things of that nature. I also, right now, am showing a critical code queue alert. This is a campaign where you can select a subset of vulnerabilities that you want to focus on as an organization. But what's really nice here is now from this campaign, you can select one to many of these vulnerabilities and assign it to Copilot to have it do the first brush fix. And what that ultimately looks like is it will kick off a session similar to what we saw earlier with mission control. And what that looks like is something like this. This is a pull request where we have attempted to fix these vulnerabilities in one single pull request. And similar to what I showed earlier, where we were implementing different cart features, we can view this session and see exactly what it is attempted to do. And it's going through, it's reading these specific things that it's looking to fix across these different files. And ultimately, it gives you a written description of what it has changed, what it recommends you review. But ultimately, this is designed to make it so that you can more rapidly fix these issues. I think in studies, we have seen in pilots that without Copilot and Copilot Autofix, it takes anywhere from 3 to 4 hours on average for a cross-site scripting vulnerability or a SQL injection to be closed if there's a pull request for it. That is if it's done manually, because the developer needs to go through, potentially work with different teams to look at this code base. Maybe they need to get a reviewer or two to get it merged, things of that nature. And also just manually going through and making sure that the fix doesn't, cause any issues. That is a manual process in a lot of organizations today. It's an essential process to make sure that you're keeping your customers' data safe. Now you can delegate that directly to the agent, have it do its first pass, and rather than doing it all from scratch, you can have this bulk list of attempted fixes where you can review it as a team and then merge it in as necessary. The last thing I want to highlight is things around metrics as well. So I talked earlier in the slides about the Copilot metrics, different AI controls, being able to have a place to centrally manage the different policies around AI. That's what I'll leave up on. So if we go to this specific tab, just to kind of orient ourselves, I'm at the enterprise level. So this would be where an enterprise administrator in your team can view things. And in the Insights tab, we now have this Copilot usage dashboard. What this is essentially kind of what it says, right? It's looking at the adoption trends for Copilot across different surfaces. This first area is really looking at things like how many active users do we have? How many licenses are actually being used? What's the agent adoption rate? Are people only using Ask and Edit? Are they actually adopting the agent across their different IDEs? And what's the most common model that's being used? You can also go through and see the daily usage trends. You can see that there's a dip on the weekends with this demo environment. You can also see the average chat request per user, the request per chat mode. It's really there so that you can granularly look at the adoption trend. And so if you're looking to enable a certain program around your Copilot usage across your organization, the information is now readily available directly from the dashboard. Last couple of things I'll show is things around code completion rates. So this is kind of like the experience that we've had for the past 3 years, where as you're typing your lines of code in the IDE, it will give you a suggested completion. You can see that across this demo environment, it's around 20-25%, but still really cool information, right? And to add on to that, you can also see, which chat model people are actually adopting. You can see here at GitHub, the most popular one is Claude Sonnet 4. Just kind of like really, really interesting information to see. We also have AI controls at enterprise level. This takes some of the things that used to be in separate dashboards and really consolidates it into one place. So if you have questions around how AI is being adopted across your SDLC, where the specific policies are, what people have access to, this is where you can get all that information as an enterprise administrator. The first thing here is around agents in particular. As an enterprise administrator, you can go through these agent sessions that different developers or teams are kicking off, and you can see which ones are in progress, which ones have failed, which ones have succeeded. And you can even be more granular and say, okay, well, I want to look at only code reviews, or I want to look at the coding sessions. You can even drill down to a specific organization. So there's a lot of granularity as to what you're able to dig into. And if we go back, you can also choose to enable or disable a specific agent that you've installed. Now, something that I have alluded to earlier, and also you may have seen throughout this presentation, is custom agents. This is where you could take the agent and actually customize it. So if you have a specific workflow that you're looking to accomplish, you can do just that with a custom agent. So if we click into, for example, this compliance bot agent, you can see that essentially what this is a markdown file in a github-private/agents folder. If you put this into your organization, this is where you can have access to this across different teams that have access to this organization. And really, you're just describing what you're looking to accomplish with this agent in natural language, right? You're giving it a name, a purpose, and in this case, compliance standards that it needs to look for. So really, here the world's your oyster. If there's something in particular that you're looking to accomplish for the agent that you want, maybe there's something where, the agent, the generic one is, maybe it's not doing what you need it to do. Maybe there's a workflow that your team in particular needs to accomplish, and that default agent will not suffice. This is where you can start to have that customization aspect of it. So you can make that experience tailored to what your developers and what your teams need to accomplish. Really, really cool stuff. And if we go back, the last thing I want to highlight is under the Copilot subtab. You can also configure the allowed models. So this is a big question, and especially as we see Google, OpenAI, Anthropic release these new models rapidly, you can very quickly go through and see which ones people have enabled. In this case, you can see that there's the Anthropic models from Sonnet to Opus. There's also some previews that we have here. So, Gemini 3 Pro, we actually released this, I think, a week ago or not too long ago. So really, really cool to be able to see that GitHub is able to deliver on giving early access to these things as fast as possible. But you can see here, you can choose to modify which ones people have access to. So if there's, for example, a due process or due diligence process where your team needs to review from a compliance perspective which models you need to enable, maybe developers are asking for something to be turned on, this is where you can go through and see which ones are able to be accessed. So I'll pause there. That was a lot of information that we threw at you in, I think, 35 minutes. I think the summary of this is that as your developers continue to adopt agents across the SDL, you can see how they're actually being used. You can see the adoption trends. Individuals can start to orchestrate them more effectively with the mission control. Your enterprise administrators can see what they're actually doing. They can have these enforcement policies and see the adoption trends. Really, we envision GitHub Copilot moving forward being this ecosystem where as people continue to adopt AI to accelerate the SDLC in different aspects, we want that to be something that is seamless, has less friction, and really at the end of the day, enjoyable for developers. But yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. I hope that was helpful. Hope it was productive. I know that was a lot in 30 minutes, but thank you all.
Sweet. So yeah, we're gonna go through. There's a few questions that were asked that I think might be good to highlight. So I don't want to put you on the spot at all here, but we had one question in particular that got brought up specifically around like the Copilot instructions file and how that's used in code review. Do you mind sharing that or showing that?
Yeah, let me check if I actually have something.
Okay.
If not, I may not be able to find one in particular. Is it okay if you take that, Austin?
Yeah, I can take that one. That one's good.
Yeah.
Let me pull up my screen. There's just one particular example that I wanted to share. So we'll go here. I can come on camera too. So I'm coming up on stage. Yeah, so I think just like a high level for maybe the folks that are not familiar with some of the custom instructions and files that we have. So just kind of giving a breakdown. I know Kevin covered quite a few of these, but chat modes and agents are virtually the same thing. They're kind of getting rebranded. Agent's going to be more of like allowing you a specific persona that you can select directly in the UI. Chat modes is going to be more of like a if I go into the IDE, for example, so if I pull this up, and let's go to, I got a couple different things here, but we'll go to this one. If I pull up a chat mode, I can kind of select with a specific persona, right? Like similar to what Kevin was showing on like plan and stuff like that. But going back to the question was asked, how does instructions file work with code review? And so, for example, we have this Copilot instructions file. And if you look down here, right here, we have internally, we have general review guidance. So there's two different places that you can set this. So you can set this as a configuration as code within the repository, which is what we're doing here with the Copilot instructions, which maybe for the ones and twos in the chat, Copilot instructions are going to be added as context every single time the developers ask for any sort of prompt. So it's automatically ingested in. So we'll also take this in. There's also repository level review guidance that you can. So if I go back to the repository level, and if I go to settings, Copilot, which is here, and then code review or custom instructions, they changed the name on me, I can add custom instructions here as well. So the way that we look at this is depending on the granularity of scope that you want. If I want specific maybe engineering guidelines or frameworks, I would recommend adding that at the organization level versus being able to add custom instructions at a repository by repository basis, right? We give you the granularity to add the custom instructions based on those things. So I think that was Philip that asked that. So great question. Cool. All right, any other questions here in the chat? So, um, yeah, so there was a question asked about if the session will be recorded. It will be recorded. I'm gonna have it available to everybody. So all of these recordings, I'll upload this as part of the past session. So on the landing page. So I'll drop this in the chat, depending on what link you got. But that link there will take you directly to the landing page I created. I created it with Spark. So there's a couple buttons you got to click to get through there. But then I'll make this video available on YouTube as well, so we can share this with the team. Jeff asked, are there any metrics tracked around how much engineers manually modify what the agent auto-generated? Kevin, you want to try to take that one and I can help you? If not, I can answer it.
Yeah, I don't think we have that level of granularity, and I believe the reason is because we don't store the specific prompts that people are doing. But Austin, if you have more context than that, I believe that's the what and the why.
Yep, that's the answer. So to answer the question directly, no, we do not track modifications on agent mode. We are adding more individual based metrics. You should see within the next 6 months, like the dashboard that Kevin showed, that's the first iteration that we released from Universe. If you look 6 months ago, we had nothing, right? We had very limited data whatsoever. And so with adding these additional metrics, you're going to start seeing those populate in the dashboard. Another big push that we have is extending the look back data from 28 days, which is kind of a pain, to have a full year look back. So 365 days. So a great question, Jeff. Answer the question. Roman asked a really good question on the metrics API dashboard. I highlighted this, but just for the other folks that maybe missed that answer, Kevin, do you know the requirements of being able to view the dashboard in GitHub?
The one that I showed?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. My understanding is you need to be an enterprise admin. I don't know if there's another one that will require that, but yes. And just for context, the structure goes repo, and then under that or above that would be an organization. And then if you have multiple organizations, which could represent teams or maybe just business units, you have the one enterprise. So that's the overall umbrella above the orgs.
Yep, exactly. So it does require an enterprise owner. There's kind of a workaround right now where if they add you as a billing manager, you can pull the information at the enterprise level and also view the metrics. From an organization standpoint, you need to be an organization owner, and you can start pulling Copilot metrics there as well. There's a good document for the metrics here, so I'll drop this in the chat. This is specifically on the usage metrics, and we're going to be adding a ton of information there, like um, different from Agent HQ and some of the other releases that we're having. A big push that we're going to have, like I said, in the next 6 months or so, is just being able to provide more metrics. I've been part of our team selling Copilot now for coming up on 3 years. And every customer asks the same thing. I need to continue to justify the money that we're spending on Copilot. How can you guys help me do that through metrics? And so that's been a big push for our team, is just to help you guys continue to use the product. So, yeah. I know that we might end a little bit early. I expected this session to be a little earlier just because it's just Universe from updates rather than a generic Copilot demo. But um, yeah, Roman called out, would be cool to have a blame view that shows what Copilot generates. Yeah. I know that I think the IntelliSense one shows that, like it'll highlight it if it was written by their AI versus not. I think that it would be interesting, right? I think we're going to come to a place where they say, what's the future? It's like 80% of all code will be written by AI. And then somebody else said 90 and somebody else said 120%. I don't know what metric they're using now, but I definitely think it'd be cool to say, hey, Copilot committed this. You can technically see that if you're using the Copilot coding agents, because you can see the bot that actually does commit. So like really cool example, and this is just kind of like a side tangent and cool if you're nerdy like me, is you can see in the Insights tab. I'm gonna share my screen again here. And I got to bring it up on stage. But if you look in the Insight tab, so this is the GitHub repo to make sure I'm not doing any like hand waving or demo magic. We have 39,000 branches. Talk about not best practices using GitHub, right? 20 or 2.1 million commits on this repository. Like we're actively developing on this. But if I scroll over to the Insights tab, you can start seeing, like from a poll standpoint, in the last week, who the number one contributor is, right? And if you look, that is the software engineering agent. Oh, I didn't mean to click on that. I was trying to get the highlight to pop up, and I can make it a little bigger. But this is the Copilot software engineering agent, has the number one amount of commits. Number three, code review, right? So we are actively using these products. And then if I look over here and if I go back to a month, what do we see? We see similar metrics, right? Copilot is significantly further than some of these other developers. And so the idea is, as you take advantage of these agents, we're really moving more into the sense of like orchestration and management of being able to highlight some of these things. But if you look, 1,600 commits authored by the software engineering agent, 343 by the pull request reviewer agent, and lastly, 393 by Jaden's. Shout out to him for being the number one contributor on GitHub last month. But yeah, it just gives you an idea of how much we're actively using these tools as well, to kind of give you an idea. And um, and I don't know, Kevin, if I missed this or not, but for like a call to action, did we call out like enabling code review everywhere? Did we show that yet? It's okay if I missed that. Yes?
Yep. Yeah. Other
Cool.
branch. Yeah. Their branch will set.
Perfect. I mean, that's the big thing, right, guys? So to continue to take advantage of these, I think the number one thing that we can do is, on average, we're seeing a 20% increase in PR throughput, so a decrease in PR open time. So enable code review, roll those things out everywhere. Yeah, sorry I missed that earlier. I was heads down in the chat trying to get some of those questions answered, but get those things enabled and start taking advantage of these things, right? Things like custom agents, which are really just customized personas to help you solve a problem. Being able to delegate these tasks at scale and manage them from a unified location really is going to be the goal. But if we don't have any further questions, we can end a couple minutes early and give some time back. But any last minute questions before we adjourn? Cool. All right. Well, if you guys need anything, reach out to your sales teams. They will be there to support you. Hopefully this was insightful. I'm glad to have a little bit of time back. Today's really busy for me, so I'm pretty excited about that. But hopefully you guys learned a lot about agents. And Kevin, thank you so much for the time today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate the time that everyone took to join us in this session.
All right. Well, happy coding, everybody. See ya.